Hello, and thank you very much for having us and for supporting our cause. Thank you. Daphne Caruana Galizia was a unique voice, but even beyond that, it was an assassination that shocked the nation, because it is unprecedented in our country that a journalist is attacked in this way. And the cartoon that you see behind me is one way that people found to express. People were in shock. They did not know how to express themselves. There was no political party that would protect them or fight their cause. So people did whatever they could. They took to the streets, they drew cartoons, they wrote articles. The shock turned to sadness, and eventually it turned to anger. Any journalist doing a proper job is bound to have enemies. Now, Daphne took on criminal gangs, corrupt politicians, and shady governments. In that sense, the list of suspects is endless. But the point that we insist on making is that whether the blame falls on fuel smugglers, on drug lords, on the shady governments that Malta has become increasingly close with in recent years, the point is that we are living in a climate where we are facing a collapse of the rule of law. The state has failed to protect one of its own. This banner that you see unfurled, that is in the capital city, Valletta, reading Mafia State. This is new terminology in our country. We don't talk like this. But it was immediately the phrase that was coined after her assassination. The placards that you see on the left hand side of the slide are placards left at the police headquarters in the capital city as well. On the next slide, you will see these are the people that took to the streets in the first of many protests that have been held. The numbers have been phenomenal for Malta, because people do not take to the streets in Malta unless a political party flies a flag and says, "Follow me." It doesn't happen. So this is unique. This is already one of the things that is changing in Malta, that people don't feel they need to have a leader. They can take to the streets and make their own demands. It has been 1 month, more than a month now, since her assassination. We have no information on the progress of police investigations. The government is saying nothing. The government is insisting on that it is business as usual. When people are protesting on the streets, our Prime Minister went abroad to continue participating in a scheme where the government is selling Maltese passports. The message that the government keeps giving us is that this is just a normal day, this is nothing out of the ordinary, it is business as usual, let's move on. But the people are insisting, they are not taking this, and they are saying, no, we cannot continue to live like we did yesterday. The government's answer to the people's stand right now, and this was last week, was to say that that majority rule trumps the rule of law. So what he is saying is that we have a mandate to govern, and you will do as we say. This is, again, something that has created a lot of anger in the country. But there's also a lot of positive that has come out of all of this. For example, we have seen the emergence of new movements that are being led by women. But the hate speech and the sexist language that Daphne had to face year after year after year did not die with Daphne. It is now targeting the activists who are on the streets saying that we demand change. In the slide, you see this is a consultant to the Prime Minister. And one of the movements, the women's movement that was created, was called Occupy Justice. And they camped outside the Prime Minister's office, calling for the resignation of the Attorney General and the resignation of the Police Commissioner. This consultant, who is called Tony Zarp and is a former union boss, took to Facebook and called the women prostitutes. And the cartoon that you see to its side was our response to his remarks. The picture here shows a Facebook post by Partit Laborista. Partit Laborista is the Labour Party. It is the party in government. This was put up while the Occupy Justice movement was camping outside the Prime Minister's office. And as you can see, I am one of the targets over there. I do not form part of this movement. I support this movement, but I am definitely not one of their ringleaders. So what they are doing is putting us together and saying, oh, this is just the opposition. They just want to counter your legitimate vote. Don't listen to them. They are reframing the whole opposition. The situation in Malta has drawn the attention of the European Parliament. And last week there was a very strong vote for the European Commission to look into the state of the rule of law in Malta. Two of the most important points in the resolution, one of them is they call for the police commissioner to start the investigations on our authorities mentioned in the Panama Papers. Malta has the only European Union minister mentioned in the Panama Papers, and the police commissioner has for more than a year refused to conduct any investigations. A second point of concern is the lack of media plurality in the country, because most of the media in the country is owned by the political parties, and the few independent channels that there are come under a lot of heavy pressure by the government. In this context, Daphne's death is not only about the death of a journalist, it is about the silencing of independent voices in the country. She was 90% of the independent voices in the country. By killing Daphne, they killed the opposition, they killed any criticism that should be held in a democratic country on the government's performance. So obviously we have to look to the future, and what can we do? The first thing we have done, more than 20 people, friends, academics, artists, and journalists have come together to compile a book on the life and work of Daphne, so she was never forgotten. The book gives a bit of an insight into her person and to her as a person, because they had just dehumanized her. Also, her contribution to democracy and to independent journalism in the country. And also, there are contributions from readers in terms of how they viewed her blog and the importance to them in terms of spreading the information that people needed to know in terms of understanding the political parties in the country. In terms of journalism, we can never fill Daphne's shoes, but we can certainly try to continue her investigative work. So what we have done, myself and another 2 independent investigative journalists, we have left our newsrooms, we have rejected jobs in mainstream media, we have come together and put up a site, we work without a salary, we depend on people's support, but we have come together with a commitment to first of all continue her work to the best of our ability, and second of all create a platform for civil society so that our voices can never be silenced. And all I can ask you is that the message throughout this conference has been about strength in numbers, about solidarity. We promise to support your work. Please help us spread our word too.